Hello everyone, and welcome. Happy Thursday? Is it Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday. TGIT, ladies and gents, and non-binary folk, we are almost at the end of this week, thank God. Thank you all for joining. My name is Camwilson. I am a internet reporter, I'm a Twitch streamer. It's also coming out on Twitter as well these days. So hello to everyone who is watching through that, kind of confused about how this ended up in your feed. How are you all doing tonight? It's nice to see you all. TGIC, what does that stand for, Zales? Hey Kafuski, hey, I was listening to Angels Brought Me Here. I'm sorry, but Guy Sebastian might be cancelled. Yeah, you know, some pretty interesting beliefs in vaccines. He was out there promoting the government's art scheme, which didn't work out very well. Nah, he's alright. He's alright. But we stand Shannon in this feed. Hello, bored hermit. Are we betting on the next resignation? I don't know. Yeah, we should. Who do you reckon the next person to resign from Australian politics will be? Oh yeah. Check raise times 2. Hi, by the way, says I'm a guy Sebastian brought COVID to Australia. Truth. That's right. The most cancelable of all things was him being patient zero for COVID in Wuhan in November 2019. Oh boy. There's always a lot happening in the world, but it does feel like at the moment there is a lot happening at the moment, particularly in politics. So we'll be talking together about, it was a shithouse week. I guess depending on who you're barracking for, but if you're the government at least, or perhaps if you're someone who wants real things to happen, you're probably not too keen about the week. Hey, maybe if you're someone who wants to see this government gone by any means possible, then you might be happy. But even still, some really, really awful stuff happened this week. But hey, we're going to talk about it. If we don't laugh, we'll cry, I guess. And don't worry, we'll get to talk about some fun stuff as well. We'll say goodbye to some of our favourite people in politics, or at least temporary goodbyes to some. We're also going to check in. I want to give you an update on these new anti-trolling laws. We finally saw the details that came out this week. When I first saw it, I was like, I don't know about this. This seems like it's probably not going to help that much with trolling. Now that I've seen it, well, I'll share my take. And also, it wouldn't be a stream without talking about anti-vaxxers a little bit. And we will also be... I've got some good TikToks, of course, as well. Yes. But yeah, good to see you all. Nice to have you here. Whoever I said hi to. Facthound, Carl Sheldrick, takes. Oh, baby. The takes are coming. Hey, Regina. I've had a very nice day and I'm feeling good, and I don't know why this is happening. I'm sorry to hear. I'm pretty sure that's sarcasm. I'm sorry to hear things aren't well. Hey, Beowulfs. Who else am I not said hi to? Jarita, hello for the first time. And beep boop 2424 TGITH. Indeed. Indeed. Oh yeah. Pyrogrunt. I'm here for the BBW Cum Pumper 69 segment. Don't you wait. We'll be talking about that. But first off, let's just look at this came from 9 Papers from David Crow, which is a bit of a wrap up of this week. This really, really sorry, weird, sad, angry, depressing week in politics. He wrote, a political storm over the treatment of women has forced Prime Minister Scott Morrison to sideline Education Minister Alan Tudge in the final day of Parliament for the year, as the government struggled to gain ground on key bills ahead of the next election. Mr. Morrison ordered an inquiry into Mr. Tudge and asked him to stand aside, after the minister's former press secretary, Rochelle Miller, went public with new claims he was abusive when they had an affair that led her to leave his office. More on that in a little bit. While Mr. Tudge said he completely and utterly rejected the claims, the dispute heightened the political danger to the government over the treatment of women after Sex Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins called on Tuesday for an overhaul of the culture in Parliament. An election in March remains an option for the government after it ended Parliament for the year, with Greg Hunt announcing he would leave politics right after Christian Porter said the same. Mr. Morrison asked the Employment Minister and close friend Stuart Robert to take on Mr. Tudge's duties. Brother Stewie picking up a few extra, titles in the meantime. But there is no deadline for the review, and the government may need to name new ministers before it seeks a fourth term in power. While Parliament is scheduled to return on February 8 for a few weeks of sittings before a March 29 budget, the Prime Minister has the option of going to the polls in March. Albo says he'll be preparing for an election by unveiling a climate policy on Friday. And he will convene a shadow cabinet ministry meeting and a caucus discussion and a few other things as well. That's right. And here's the other thing. Here's what they didn't get done this week. With another rebellion in sight, the government dropped its plans to bring religious freedom proposal to a vote in the House of Representatives on Tuesday because Liberal MPs, including Bridget Archer, Warren Ench, and Trent Zimmerman, wanted more time. The delay means the Religious Discrimination Act is unlikely to pass before the election, with Liberals at odds over the impact on gay and lesbian Australians, and Labor holding out till it sees the results of an inquiry. We'll chat about some more in a moment. They also did not introduce their bill to set up a Commonwealth Integrity Commission and dropped its bill to require identification for voters at elections in a deal with Labor that passed new rules for political campaigners. The government claimed progress on the remissions of sentences bill and will prevent authorities reducing sentences of terrorist offenders and anyone else subject to a sentence under federal law. Now, I don't know if this seemed the same way to you, but it seems like this government, in their final week before the big break, everyone's going to switch off. I can't wait to switch off. I'm not going to read a single news article when I work in the media. Everyone else is absolutely going to do the same as well. So everyone's about to switch off, and they have this one opportunity, right, to leave like a good impression, have a strong week, do something good, make some movement, maybe fulfill an election promise or two. And they really stuffed it. And to some extent, some of this was not in their control. The Kate Jenkins review, which we'll talk about in a second, was not. But I mean, this stuff where they're dealing with these, all these members who were saying they're not going to pass laws or vote their conscience until the government agrees to get rid of vaccine mandates. Then you've got these moderate liberals who, for once, it seems like, are standing up for something, which is religious discrimination and trying to do something about these current laws, which at the moment allow religious schools to expel LGBT students, they would at the moment. So they're at least saying we need to tread water and actually see how this goes. It's a shambles. Like it is. I mean, look, we can. Well, maybe we should just pull up the. Essential polling. Let's look at where they are at the moment. This was now, I think, 2 weeks ago. Let's look at their shiny new website. Federal result, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Here we go. Oh no, that's quarterly. What is that from? Huh. Maybe it's not here, sorry. Oh, it's not here. Maybe I'll go morning consult, sorry. Oh god. morning consult world leaders popularity. Actually, no, we've got news polls. Sorry, latest news poll. Here we go. So at the moment, we've got Labor up ahead, but really what people paying attention to the PM stuff. Two-party preferred, Labor ahead by 6 points, and better PM is actually kind of irrelevant as well. But primary vote as well, like Labor being up near the coalition is not very good. So anyway, all that is to say that things are not going well. But as always, like when you're in government, you have so much more power. People pay more attention to you. You actually have the ability to do things. You can't always get things done, but you have the ability to do things and kind of set the agenda and make everyone react to you. They were not able to actually do anything this week. And, look, it's like, I've said this before. This government was kind of, in a way, saved by COVID because it meant that it gave them something to do. Because when they were elected in 2019, a lot of what they're elected on was, we don't want Labor's big reforms. We don't want Bill Shorten or whatever. But that meant they didn't actually have anything to do in there. And they've kind of just been treading water. Haven't passed anything significant. This religious discrimination bill, which we'll talk about now, was a promise. Now they've got all these scandals following them as well. It's just a shambles. It really, really is. So this from last night. The Morrison government has struck a deal with some moderate Liberal MPs to support its contentious religious discrimination bill, agreeing to make immediate changes to protect gay students from discrimination in religious schools. Proposed amendments may not be enough to win over all MPs, that's right, and see the bill pass through the lower house this week, that's right. Warren Entsch said he wasn't going to, and the same with Trent Zimmerman and Bridget Archer. However, it did get Dave Sharma, Katie Allen, and Fiona Martin all on side. Under the change agreed to by Cash, the government will introduce consequential amendments to remove Section 38.3 of the Sex Discrimination Act, which allows religious schools to discriminate against a person on the grounds of sexual orientation, gender identity, marital relationship status, or pregnancy. Like, oh my God. Can you believe that was not already in this? Like, is that not insane? Is that not insane to you? That, like, they wanted to pass a law that would allow that to happen? Like, seriously? To allow kids who are, figuring out their sexual identity, figuring out their gender identity, all of that stuff, and to be like, your school has the right to just give you the flick. Incredible. But, as we all know, it was never going to be that easy. Of course, when that happened, the Australian Christian Lobby threatens to pull support for a religious discrimination bill. The ACL and Christian Schools Australia have launched attacks on Scott Morrison's commitment to fast-track protection for gay students, with the ACL threatening to withdraw its support for the government's religious discrimination bill. The ACL said if exemptions under the Sex Discrimination Act protecting teaching and daily operation of faith-based schools were removed, they would walk away from the Prime Minister's religious protection legislation. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, nothing really exciting in that. I mean, I actually tend to agree with what Check Raise Times 2 said, which is who cares? Because I don't know if this is a widely held opinion, but I'm not really sure how influential the Australian Christian lobby is. I know, look, everyone has seen them. They're pretty popular, I think, on Facebook. They're very vocal. They say that they represent Australian Christians, but 230,000 followers, almost 300,000. Brogley's right. I think they are good at getting some people to make to do something about this. like to follow through an action and to write letters or whatever. But the question is, like, are they good at do they actually represent the opinions, and do they have sway over a lot of Christians in Australia? And I haven't really seen compelling evidence that they do. Like I've never seen like a groundswell support, you know, of like a protest or anything beyond what they usually have in response to anything. I think that they are a little bit overstated. And I think that, like, you know, the truth is that anyone who's already like a big fan of the Christian lobby is already like very much well within that camp. And I think probably both major parties know that, and probably other parties as well, being like, well, if you're like, you know, if you're a believer in the ACL, if you're one of these, you know, say 2/3 of those are Australian and you believe in that, well, like, you're kind of like, your mind's already made up. But there's a lot of other people who don't, I think, follow them, and I'm not sure the ACL has a lot of sway. This is a gut feeling. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure they have a lot of sway over like all the like casuals, which is, you know, most Christians in Australia, most aren't like fundamentalist full on about it. So yes, I don't really know. Like, I think this will be a test. If the ACL, like, we'll see if the ACL gets its way with this. But if it doesn't, I think that's yet more proof that, like, the ACL is good at making it seem like they are impactful. They are good at, you know, like, getting the media to write about them. I've written about them, so I can't really talk about it. But are they actually good at really lobbying, really changing people's minds and things? I don't know. All right. We should... I missed it. I feel like I missed something in the comments, which was a kind of controversial take. Where was it? Timberlag. I don't know if I should read this out, but I will. Coalition popularity skyrockets when Barnaby Joyce is caught... Oh, no. No, I can't say it. If you want to see it, you can scroll up in the comments. I'm not going to read that out. I don't think we should have that. I don't think we should have me on camera saying that. Yeah, I'm a coward. This is a coward's palace. Social media, according to Scott Morrison. Okay. On to the next thing, and this is like, I really, you know, I want to take this 100% seriously, and I'm often quite lighthearted about this stuff, but this is pretty full. So by the way, we'll be talking about allegations of abuse, and, you know, if that's not something you want to listen to, you know how hard feelings, like, feel, you know, it's the right thing to take care of yourself, so don't stress too much. I think we'll get it over and done with quickly. So, Education Minister Alan Tudge has stepped down from Cabinet and taken personal leave as allegations from his former media advisor that their affair was emotionally abusive and on one occasion physically abusive are being investigated. Victorian Liberal has rejected the claims, and Scott Morrison has asked him to leave his ministerial role while inspected investigator Dr. Vivian Thom examines the matter. He released a statement. Miss Miller released a statement before addressing the media, saying she wanted to tell more of a story, which first became public in a Four Corners program a year ago. She said she's speaking out again because she wants the nation's leaders to implement in full the recommendation from a review of parliamentary workplace culture. I'm fully aware that a year ago I said that my relationship with Minister Alan Tudge was a consensual relationship, but it's more complicated than that. I was so ashamed, so humiliated, so scared, so exhausted. I told the small part of my story that I was able to manage. She said the bullying, intimidation and harassment she experienced from Mr. Tudge at work destroyed confidence in her own abilities. The relationship was defined by a significant power imbalance. It was emotionally and on one occasion physically abusive relationship. Mr. Tudge rejected the claims, saying that he said he had a consensual affair, but he rejects his allegations. Miss Miller on Thursday outlined an incident when she alleged that she and Mr. Tudge were in Kalgoorlie for an announcement with the then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, and the minister took her to a hotel bar for a drink at the end of a long day. At 4 a.m. the next morning, she was woken by a phone call from a media producer wanting to get the minister on for an interview. I started to talk to her to arrange a time, but I was still half asleep. Then I felt someone kick the side of my hip and leg as I tried to sit up in the bed. It was the minister. He was furious, telling me to get the fuck out of his bed. I was quickly told the producer I would call her back. I then realised I was completely naked. After she managed to get dressed and return to her room and organised a series of media interviews with Mr. Tudge, she said she took a shower and had a moment to think. I could not remember a single thing from the night before. I don't remember how we ended up in the room. I don't remember leaving the bar. I don't remember if we had sex. I don't know if we used protection. I still don't. I was too afraid to ask him if he remembered. Mr. Tudge did not address this recollection directly, saying that only he and Miss Miller worked close together, and he just said it should not have happened. And following that, in a very bizarre thing to do, Alan Tudge has now released. Sorry, we'll get this over and done with quickly. Apologies for keep going through it, but I think it's important. Education Minister Alan Tudge has stood aside. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So he said that he has a contradictory written evidence which will be referred into a full independent review. I welcome such progress. He's taking leave, and I think there's another quote here that I'm missing somewhere. Yeah, anyway, I can't see it right here, apologies, but Tudge did say that he was sharing evidence that it was a consensual relationship based on text messages and stuff. But as almost everyone pointed out, that it was although she said it was consensual, it was a bit more complicated. She has made allegations that he says aren't true, that it was emotionally and physically abusive. Doesn't matter if you've consented to a relationship, abuse is abuse. So that is not a defense for that. Awful. Anyway, so he's being investigated and taking time off, and that's, I guess, look, I personally don't have a whole lot of faith in government or I guess like politics-led reviews, even though, as I think Carl said in the comments, that Dr. Vivian Thom is respected. Like I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but often when reviews are set up in things like politics, even in business, reviews are set up with specific terms of references and limits that mean that they are often guided to get a result that the person who establishes them wants. So an example of that is, I think, with the first review into Alan Tudge and his affair, if I'm remembering this correctly, they did an investigation, they found that nothing was wrong, but they didn't actually interview Rochelle Miller, the person who just made these allegations. So, that's an example of how you can set up reviews to give, to in a way that gets certain responses. Anyway, heavy, really heavy. I'm sorry. We should quickly, while we are talking about this stuff, because I think it is important again, and this will be the last we talk about it, talk about what came earlier in the week, which was Sexual Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins' reviews of parliamentary culture. She handed down a review, this is by my colleague Amber Schultz, which found that 1 in 3 staffers have experienced sexual harassment at work. Scott Morrison, responded to the report in a press conference that started just 15 minutes after the 456-page document was released and an hour before Jenkins spoke publicly. Again, like, that's an example of how, politicians can set up media events and news events in a way that benefits them, because if you speak before the sex commissioner, you're the one who gets to lead their news and set the parameters of discourse around it. And if you give people 15 minutes, they can't really dig into the document. And then in the future, if you want to ask any questions, it's easy to say, well, I've already talked about that. Let's move forward. I don't look back. Anyway. So the report found that 37% of people had experienced some form of bullying, 1 in 3 some form of sexual harassment, and 1% of the 1,700 people had experienced either actual or attempted sexual assault. The report made 28 recommendations, including targets to achieve gender balance, an independent parliamentary standards commission with clear and consistent responses to reports and complaints of bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. Jenkins said, and this is so important, that power was a huge driver in abuse. Parliament is inherently about power, and the power rallies in multiple directions. We heard power imbalances and the misuse of power is one of the primary drivers of bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. Gender equality and wider lack of diversity, particularly evident in low representation of women in leadership roles, mean that women are more likely to experience misconduct. Parliamentarians and their staff don't have leadership skills required to effectively lead teams. Morrison thanked Brittany Higgins for coming forward. He said he was appalled by the results, but wished he found them more surprising. He went later on the back foot, noting the existence of harassment in other workplaces. Again, isn't it funny how politicians will defend against claims that no one has made as a way of trying to change discussions around things? Yes, I think that's enough. Look, so I don't know how familiar you guys are all with how parliamentary, like how employment works in Parliament. But I mean, the first thing is that MPs are elected. Then that, I mean, of course, that means they don't have a boss. That means that, you know, you can't just like fire someone, for instance, for being a terrible manager. Now, if they do a crime, that's obviously a different matter. But like, you know, everything up till there is a very difficult thing to kind of deal with, because at the end of the day, they have been, according to the way our system works, are there to represent the people who voted them in. And so they answer to them and not necessarily to some boss. And look, you know, to be fair, that system is set up so that, for instance, I mean, like, if there was some kind of way that they could be fired for something, you could imagine that would get quite political as well, or could get quite political if a system was set up in a way. Imagine if a politician who you liked was fired for something, for, you know, bad management or something. I don't know, it's a very weird thing. But the complicating factor is that staffers, so staff who work directly for politicians, they get assigned a certain amount of staff. If they're a minister or in the shadow cabinet, I think as well. But, you know, if they're in some kind of role, they often get more, you know, they get more staff as well. They directly employ staff members. And so as a result, they kind of have this relationship where that's the person who, realistically speaking, kind of becomes the only thing that matters to them, insofar as like they're often easily hired. You know, there doesn't have to be like a merit process. It's not like Scott Morrison has to put out an advertisement for someone who works in his press office. And at the same time, if they want to be let go at any point, they can. Their contracts are set up that way, and you know, these politicians aren't paying their salaries or the payouts out of their own pocket, so they can kind of do that as they please. And that kind of means that like there's this uncomfortable balance where like if you work for someone who's a shit, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And you can't really, it's difficult to speak up because you know that they can fire you quite easily. Even if you're someone who works for an MP who's great, but there's another MP who's a shit, well, there's not much that your boss can really do about them, and it's not really much that you can do about them. And this highly hierarchical, very enclosed environment just kind of breeds, the atmosphere where it just seems like there's a reason that this is rife in there. It's because all of these systems are set up for essentially traditional, outdated, almost gender norms. Because the point is we don't have gender equality in Parliament, and so as a result, most of the powerful people are men, and that means that it's a very male-dominated culture. And that's I haven't read the report myself, but that is something that's gonna be very difficult to change, to break up. And as Boardham says, some of them say shit in the chamber most HR departments would fire you for. Exactly. It's also, that's the thing, even if all of this stuff was even if it was a normal workplace with normal contracts and the bosses could be fired, it is also the culture that they have. It's the rough and tumble of politics, and they try and psych each other out, and it's my team versus their team that breeds this kind of I don't know, it's rife to be taken advantage of by bad people. Because as well, imagine if you're a staff member for a party and all you want in the world is your party to win. Well, if you have to go public about something, or if you think about going public about something, about some allegation, that you're also, that's going to hurt your team. That's the truth. When there's a Liberal sex scandal or a Labor sex scandal, that affects how everyone sees it. And so it becomes this uncomfortable conflict. So yeah, and obviously the aspect is there's so much alcohol, there's drugs, and I guess just the, tantalizing amount of power that is there that just has made an awful culture. This is nothing new, but of course you guys would understand. Yeah, it's gonna be a huge issue to fix, but I guess you gotta start somewhere, huh? Okay, I think that we should we should call it there on the depressing talk. It's important. I don't mean to downplay it, but it's a downer, and I hope that we can see some progress on it. Hey, I saw this video of Brad Hazzard, the New South Wales Health Minister, being an absolute cunt today. Just a terrible person. And I want to show it to you in just a moment. I'm just going to take a break and grab some water, and then we'll come back and I'll show you it. Hello, how are we all doing? Ooh, a little sounded like a testy pop, didn't it? For an almost 31-year-old, Jesus. How are we all doing? Camwilson here. Thank you for joining me. TGI Thursday. It is great to have this week almost over and done with. Let's have a bit more fun now, shall we? The first thing I think we should start with is tell me what you think about this. Tell me honestly. I probably shouldn't have judged before. Tell me what you think about when you see this.
Someone just said Danuta can ask a question, but that wasn't me, Danuta. Okay, Danuta.
Thank you so much. So, Minister, while we're talking about regional health, I'll firstly ask, and the one that you were questioning, why is that?
I'll tell you a bit later in the day, Danuta. If I told you now, you'd go out and say so too much, so I'll just go with the flow. But thank you, Danuta.
So, in terms of today's cases, we've had 207. Now, as a result of Omicron and the renewed...
Danuta, there are a stack of people here all just clapping and cheering at all your continuing questions. One more, so make it good.
All right, so the boosters, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of people coming. And just really quickly, we've... Hang
on. There's broad acclamation from all media up here that you've had enough. One more and that's it, Danuta.
Thank you. So we know that Otago are close to coming to some ruling on vaccinations for 5 to 11. Have you heard anything about that? Thank you, Minister.
Okay, thanks, Danuta. See ya. Anybody want to give a round of applause for Danuta? No, there was nobody. Sorry, Danuta. Bye.
What an asshole. That is so fucking rude. Am I right? Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, look. So little flickers asked, does he think this is okay, or does he not care that he looks like an absolute dickhead? I mean, look, he may have thought that he's not coming across as a dickhead. He may have just kind of thought that he could get away with these things. Like, you know, I don't know this journalist whatsoever, but those questions sounded reasonable. Like, there's this thing where, like, and you'll see politicians do this all the time, and some will do it better than, like, other politicians, where they will try and make a journalist, like, you know, embarrass them, make them out to be rude, say their question is inappropriate or something. Like, journalists, like, aren't there to be friends, and even in press conferences, they're not there to be charismatic. They're not there, like, this isn't 7:30 even. This isn't an interview show. This is just a press conference. They're just there to get the information out of a politician. And, like, to be honest, like, politicians these days are so good at answering questions. They're so media trained. They know how to, most of the time, only say what they want to say. So, you know, even if you don't expect them to, like, you know, have some massive slip up or say something scandalous, a lot of the time it's just be like, well, what other information should I get out of them? Because, I mean, again, just to give kind of a bit of insight into, like, how modern journalism works, like, getting a politician to answer something at a press conference is a much quicker and immediate thing than going through a media department, and, you know, you get a more, like, often like a slightly less bureaucratic answer. So for all those reasons, it's an efficient way of getting information out there. Like, this journalist, even if she was asking too many questions, even if everyone there was like, oh, shut up, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not her job to win over a pack of other journalists or to make Brad Hazzard happy. In fact, if anything, you'd imagine if you're making a politician really pleased, you're probably not doing your job that well. But just, like, what a rude thing to do, especially considering, like, his job is to answer the questions from the public and journalists are the conduits and get information out there. You know, during a pandemic, while there's new variant, to be like that catty and sassy and just rude, unprofessional and just fucking lame. I don't know. Brad Hazzard, no one thinks are cool. No one's impressed by that. Pyro Grunt says a criminologist tweeted about how Brad Hazzard was one of the rudest ministers he had ever interacted with, and a few days later he issued a retraction, which was obviously the result of a cease and desist. Wow. Huge. He looks pretty pleased in that frame. He looks like he's about to sneeze. Okay, we should just speed through these because I don't want to be too down, but Greg Hunt retiring. See you, mate. Here's some highlights. Here's one when he was you remember this, when he was speaking to our friend Michael Rold.
Minister gets asked a perfectly reasonable question.
Why did you feel the need to attach a Liberal Party logo to an Australian government announcement?
We predicted that you seem to be the most exercised of any person in the Australian media about this.
Actually, plenty of us are. Should a vaccine paid for by taxpayers be promoted as a partisan achievement?
It's an Australian government announcement. Who paid for the vaccines?
What did the Health Minister do to try and discredit the question being asked?
In many ways, you identify with the left.
I'm exercised about what's
There's nobody
what's
who's
right
watching who doesn't identify you with the left.
I was watching, and I don't. This isn't the first time the government has politicised something it shouldn't. Remember this Liberal Party advertisement during the bushfires?
They would have been thinking the benefit here is bigger than the backlash. They would have been thinking it brands us as being active in COVID, it brands us as being the government, and it brands us as being the party who's going to handle the situation and get you through the crisis.
It's completely inappropriate, it's a breach of ministerial standards, and it's an outrage.
As you can see from this lineup of party political propaganda, state Labor governments haven't been much better.
It does jeopardise the messaging because then we think they're all political.
One suspects that the public is sick and tired of politicians always playing politics, especially after the last 12 months that we've all endured. Peter Van Onselen for 10 News First.
Move into the music industry, and what?
Sorry, I got distracted because this is really funny to do live on air, but I just found out that I need to go get a COVID test because I've been spending time with someone who has now just been identified as a close contact. So, not ideal. Well, live on air, there we go. Bit of excitement. Oh my god, I'm really upset. I've got a good friend's wedding tomorrow as well. I can't go. I mean, I don't think I can go. I don't know. Can I get a test anywhere this late at night? What's the time? That's what I was just doing while I was opening hours 6 p.m. Opening hours for 5 p.m. Wednesday to 8:30. Yo. Okay. I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to do this off air. Sorry, everyone. I'm just really dismayed. Oh, that sucks. Okay. Well, thank you for all being here with me. That's a really funny thing to have to see y'all. Okay. Anyway. Sorry, I'm just checking my... Sorry, let me just check my messages from my partner. Excuse me for just one moment. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go because my partner's actually out at the moment, and I should go pick her up from where she is because she might be infectious. Heck. Okay, well, sorry. That was really funny. That's really, really funny, actually, in a really sick way. Okay, well, apologies for getting distracted. I had a great time. I will... Hey, look, maybe if I can't go tomorrow, I will have to be... I can stream, who knows? Because that's why I'm streaming tonight, because I have a wedding tomorrow night. My good friends. Thank you all for... Thank you all for joining. I hope you have a I hope you all have a nice night, and I will let everyone updated and know how we go. And hey, if you haven't already, please check out my my Discord and other stuff. Okay, see you later. Bye.